Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 59 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010. This is the post-final resolution show. That pay-per-view went over really well, but something that I've got after this show is definitely worth sticking around for. I'm sure the thumbnail's given that away anyway. It is the man in charge who opens the show, coming out to the ring. Of course, not everybody who watches Impact also buys the pay-per-view, so Heyman comes out and talks about the new TNA show that will debut in 2011 as TNA Evolve comes to MTV. Paul Heyman relays the same message from the pay-per-view, adding that the premiere of the show will be part of a special week for TNA as they mark 1 year since the beginning of this new regime in the company. As well as TNA Evolve, a special episode of TNA Impact will air with Kurt Angle defending his World Heavyweight Championship against Bobby Lashley. So on Sunday, Bobby Lashley made his return to TNA, clearly making his intention known that he wanted the title shot, and with that special episode coming up, Heyman saw no better opportunity than to put it on that episode. Hopefully it'll draw a rating, and after that huge announcement, Mr. Anderson comes out. He isn't happy to hear this. He comes down to the six sides and complains mostly about the controversy of his match with Kurt Angle at the pay-per-view, claiming that Kurt Angle only beat him because of the angle slam and the inadvertent contact with the World Heavyweight title belt itself. Heyman has little sympathy for Anderson. He brought the title into play, so he only has himself to blame. He does, however, tell Mr. Anderson that with it being the festive season, he wants to give him a special surprise. Anderson is skeptical, and is right to be, as Heyman informs him that he will have a mystery opponent in tonight's main event. The one clue: this is somebody that Anderson has never faced in a one-on-one match before. Anderson wants answers, but Paul Heyman isn't giving them as he heads up the ramp. Not mentioned it, but a 99, our joint best ever rated segment, continuing two storylines. The performance of Anderson good, both guys improvising so well, and you can really imagine these two bouncing off each other well on screen, and again just furthering Mr. Anderson's character while setting up tonight's main event with a surprise competitor to face Mr. Anderson. I will say it's a return rather than a new signing, just so people don't get their hopes up too high, as we go into the opening contest of the night. Hamada defeating Mischief in 9 minutes and 40 with a sit-out scoop slam driver. Both competitors with a 48 rating. It's a 51 match. It's okay. Subpar wrestling, but decent reaction from the crowd. Hamada almost avenging her defeat from the pay-per-view and giving, of course, the commentators the chance to put over that Sara Del Rey retained her championship. Hamada doesn't get much chance to take in her victory, however, as Alyssa Flash quickly enters the ring to jump her from behind. The tag team partner of Mischief had been at ringside for the match with Jimmy Jacobs. Hamada fights back, but eventually Mischief is able to grab her leg, and this lets Alyssa Flash take control. The former Knockouts Tag Team Champions then together lay into Hamada before Taylor Wilde runs down to the ring. She's not been involved in anything important for a very long time, so we kind of put this over as Taylor Wilde's return. It's certainly her return to prominence as she helps Hamada rid the ring of the New Age members. Once Mischief and Alyssa Flash reach the top of the ramp, Wilde tells them to send a message to Sara Del Rey for her. She's back and she's got her eyes on the Knockouts Championship, a former title holder, and later on tonight there will be a four-way match with 4 knockouts in. Alyssa Flash, Taylor Wilde, ODB and Sarita will all face off. 4 women all looking to rise in the ranks of the Knockouts division, and that gives Taylor a great chance to do just that, as it does the 3 other competitors in the match. Kurt Angle is then interviewed by Jeremy Borash, who asks him about Paul Heyman's announcement from earlier, Kurt's reaction to him facing Bobby Lashley in 2 weeks' time. Angle says that everything's happened so fast he's not really had a chance to process it, but he's looking forward to the challenge that Lashley presents. He's one of the toughest men he's ever shared the ring with, and he knows he'll have to be at the top of his game, just like he was at Slammiversary, to leave with the World Heavyweight Championship. Mr. Anderson interrupts the interview at this point, asking Kurt Angle what he knows about tonight's main event. He wants to know who his opponent is, but Angle has no idea. Anderson's not buying it. He thinks because Kurt's the world champion, he's in on all these things. He's starting to get maybe a little bit paranoid himself here, Mr. Anderson. He then turns to JB. You're always snooping around. You've always got answers. What do you know? It's clear that neither of them either want to tell him or no, we don't know either way, but seems likely that nobody would actually know, given this is Paul Heyman's surprise. Mr. Anderson isn't buying it, and he stomps off. He's vowing to find answers before the end of the night. He doesn't want to be caught cold, but a good segment, further promoting Bobby Lashley v Kurt Angle's huge match in 2 weeks' time, and also tonight's main event. Mr. Anderson's gimmick's getting stale, so something to think about there. An 80 rating is another decent segment. Before the second match of the night, Larry Sweeney joins commentary, speaking with Mauro Ranallo and Taz ahead of Austin Creed and Sonjay Dutt versus Shawn Spears and Tyson Dukes, two members of the eliminated Team Canada, but these two guys are sticking around, hopefully trying to get themselves TNA full-time contracts. We'll see how their performance does in the next match to see whether that'll be a viable thing. Sweeney explains why he's allowed Austin Creed to team with Sonjay Dutt. Of course, he's a member of Sweet and Sour, who have been at odds with Sonjay Dutt since Dutt's return to TNA. Sweeney says there's been a lot of questions about Creed's loyalty. Is he Team USA? Does he support Sweet and Sour's Team Japan captain Kazuchika Okada? Well, tonight we're going to get answers. With a smirk on his face, Sweeney says that the whole world will see exactly where Creed's loyalties lie in the upcoming match. And despite Larry Sweeney's confidence, you can see there that Austin Creed and Sonjay Dutt defeat Shawn Spears and Tyson Dukes in 7 minutes and 41 when Austin Creed pins Shawn Spears with a hammerlock DDT. Throughout the match, Larry Sweeney is very, very confident, and as Team Canada start to take control and Sonjay's crawling over to try and get the hot tag, Sweeney's basically hinting that we're going to get that spot where Austin Creed drops off the apron, walks out on his partner, therefore proving his loyalty to Sweeney and Okada. But that never comes. Instead, Austin Creed ignores Larry Sweeney, who by this point has got out of his seat, and he is being very, very explicit that Creed needs to turn his back on Sonjay Dutt. Instead, Creed takes the hot tag, comes in, House of Fire, turns the match around and gets the win for his team. Sonjay Dutt head and shoulders above the rest. Tyson Dukes really quite far off where we need him to be, as was Shawn Spears really, so I'm not going to bring those two guys in just yet. It says Austin Creed hints at a heel turn. Actually, the opposite is the case. It looks like now he is not following the orders of Larry Sweeney, and considering that Sweeney's basically done nothing for him since he joined Sweet and Sour, you can't really blame Austin Creed at this point. Sonjay Dutt then returns to the ring with Austin Creed, raising the arm of his partner in the direction of Larry Sweeney. The head of Sweet and Sour is asking Creed what he's thinking. He's out of his mind, but Creed refused to betray Sonjay Dutt. The smirk on Sonjay's Dutt doesn't last long, however, as Kazuchika Okada leads Team Japan to the ring. Larry Sweeney looks to Austin Creed as if to give him an ultimatum between whether he's going to side with Sonjay Dutt or whether he's going to remain with Sweet and Sour. Before Creed can indicate either way, Team USA make their way down to the ring, with Roderick Strong and Generation Me joining Austin Creed and Sonjay Dutt in the ring. With a numbers game no longer in their favour, Team Japan back off. Sonjay Dutt speaking with Austin Creed, while Roderick Strong sends a message to the X Division champion and the rest of Team Japan. That match will also take place on that first Impact of 2011, and we will crown a World X Cup winner, furthering a few different dynamics. They're not the best rated segments, but for mid-level storylines that we've got going on, I'm happy with that, or happy enough with that. Paul Heyman is then shown in his office with the Motor City Machine Guns and Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team having both been called to join him in there. Both teams are understandably furious about what happened at Final Resolution, with the Kings of Wrestling attacking both teams after their World Tag Team Championship match, and that's what Paul Heyman wants to speak to them about. Paul asks both teams if they could not get physically involved with the New Age tonight. The three guys in the New Age have got a match. He needs it to run smoothly. He can't have Impact going off the rails, especially with all the other moving parts that he has to try and control. That's why he sees these four guys are reasonable men, and he wants to make sure that they're on the same page as him. In order to convince them, he tells Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin that he will give them the chance to call out the New Age later tonight, do whatever they want, but as long as it's in that allotted slot later on. And the point of that is ensuring that nothing happens before the match. As for Hassan Benjamin, it's pretty straightforward. They're all business, he knows that. So 2 weeks from tonight, on the New Year episode of Impact, Kings of Wrestling versus Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team, and whoever wins that will face MCMG at Genesis. The pay-per-view will take place week 4 January, that New Year's Impact is kind of being used as a pay-per-view style show that can then allow me to have pay-per-views on week 4 of each month. Neither team seems convinced. They don't see why they shouldn't just go out and beat the hell out of them at the first possible opportunity. But Heyman says he doesn't want to have to get security involved, so he needs them on board. While they're not happy about it, they both are willing to compromise, it seems. And we'll see whether that is actually the case with this matchup next. And it is the New Age defeating 3 local talents. You can see by the ratings of their opponents that this was never going to be a good match, but all 3 men coming out well. Chris Hero and Tyler Black both looking good out there. Claudio Castagnoli getting better at his gimmick, but the key here is that it's just under 6 minutes, so it's 2 minutes for each of the guys to get this stuff in. Hero's elbows, Castagnoli's uppercuts, all the other things, Chris Hero's boots and Claudio Castagnoli's power spots, and then Tyler Black comes in for the last 2 minutes and he pins Nick Rogers with a God's last gift. Because it's a jobber match, I don't think he needs to use the stomp, and it's also good to try and get over multiple moves that Tyler Black can use to end the match. The stomp obviously being his Uber finisher, I think it's called in the game, where he pulls that out for the big matches, and you know, if he hits that, then it is lights out and game over. Joining the trio in the ring, Jimmy Jacobs takes a microphone and asks where all the doubters are. He looks around and he sees nobody willing to come out and try and shut the New Age up anymore. All the doubters must be in the exact same place as AJ Styles, Jeff Hardy and Sting. See, it's all gone quiet and nobody seems to want to pick a fight with the New Age anymore. That's why on Sunday, they picked their own. Hassan Benjamin stood in the ring happy with their own performance following a defeat. To Jacobs, that's plain and simple the attitude of losers, and the Kings are ready to prove that on the New Year's episode of Impact. As for Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, they'll see them in 5 weeks' time at Genesis, but if the Motor City Machine Guns want a little preview of that later tonight, then all they have to do is ask. Jimmy Jacobs is happy for the New Age to oblige in that regard, and just setting up that the Motor City Machine Guns will be in the ring later tonight, as well as the potential upcoming matches of the New Age. Returning to the second hour of Impact, Mr. Anderson is seen in the parking lot, and Anderson says that Paul Heyman wants to play a game, so he's going to play a game of his own. He explains that he's looking for any unfamiliar vehicles in the parking lot. He's going to find out who his opponent is, whether Heyman wants him to or not. After looking around for a little while, Anderson can't see anything that he doesn't recognise. Anderson gives up and seems to accept that he'll be finding out who his opponent is at the same time as everybody else, but he does try and twist this again and use it as proof that Paul Heyman has an agenda against him. The idea was that he'd make a sort of off-the-cuff remarks as he went through the parking lot, just letting Anderson be Anderson, but he did not do well without a script there, so backfiring a little bit as it loses heat to Kurt Angle's next challenger storyline, which he shouldn't really be part of anymore, so we'll take him out of that. But the fourth match of the night sees Sarita defeat ODB, Taylor Wilde and Alyssa Flash when Sarita pins ODB with a flying crossbody. Taylor Wilde is taken out during the match with a flash driver by Alyssa Flash onto the steel steps, so both women hurting themselves in the process of that move, and then Sarita and ODB left in the ring with Sarita picking up the victory. ODB, Alyssa Flash, all 4 of them doing quite well, to be honest. Jimmy Jacobs doing good work at ringside, although it's probably a bit soon for him to be back out there having been just in the ring, so ignore that. After the match, Sarita has her arm raised. Sarah Del Rey coming to the top of the stage. Looking down at Sarita, Del Rey makes it clear that she doesn't see her as a potential challenger to the Knockouts Championship. Not long after coming out, Sarah Del Rey turns straight back and heads back where she came from. The commentators confirm that there will be a Knockouts Championship match on the New Year's episode of Impact, and Sarita may well be that challenger after picking up a very good victory on this show. We then see a sit-down interview with Mike Tenay speaking with Desmond Wolfe following his decisive defeat to Bryan Danielson at Final Resolution. Compared to his usual confrontational approach, is kind of out of character for Desmond Wolfe, but what he did on Sunday when he tried to shake the hand of Bryan Danielson, that was out of character too. Desmond Wolfe accepts that there were no excuses for him to make for what happened at Final Resolution. Bryan just beat him. He's fought Danielson before. He's won some and he's lost some. These two guys have long been regarded two of the very best in the world, but the Bryan Danielson he fought on Sunday was better than ever. So what's next for Desmond Wolfe? He says that he doesn't really know. He's been in TNA for just over 12 months, and he's picked up some great victories, but often failed at the final hurdle. He needs to reflect, and that's what these next few weeks are about, to look back on the year that's just gone and take a new focus into 2011. So Desmond Wolfe, while not doing well without a script, is kind of showing some character development here. Before the interview ends, Mike Tenay does say that he has to ask, why did Desmond Wolfe try to shake hands with Bryan Danielson at the end of the match, considering the personal animosity between them? Wolfe does not like this being brought up, takes his lapel mic off and says the interview's over. He kind of has a go at Mike Tenay as he goes, so we do see that there's still that fire in him. So the question, I suppose, is whether Wolfe has actually mellowed and whether he is taking this time to reflect, or whether he's just putting on a bit of a front. Bryan Danielson then defeats Cafu in 1 minute and 49 with a cattle mutilation. Another squash match here. Bryan Danielson continuing to prove that he is so dangerous. While he does have those long matches like he's had with Desmond Wolfe and like he did with Christopher Daniels, he can also come in the ring and beat you like that. And this is one of those examples where Danielson just gets in the ring, breaks somebody down, locks in that move, and they have no choice to tap. He then stands in the ring following another decisive victory, taking a microphone and addressing his win from Final Resolution. Danielson says that regardless of what he thinks of Wolfe, he has to give him credit for how he competes within the 6 sides. He is without doubt the toughest person that he has ever shared a ring with, but now Danielson too is ready to look forward. As for what happened with Wolfe after the match, Danielson still can't get his head around it. In all the years that he's known Wolfe, he's never seen him do something like that. To be honest, he thinks that Wolfe is the one man who would never shake hands with him. As Bryan goes to leave, a graphic appears on the screen featuring the number 4. Danielson is confused, just like he was at the pay-per-view, but before long that graphic is gone. The commentators have a brief discussion about what that number 4 could mean before moving on with the show. So Bryan Danielson there, perhaps the target, or perhaps it was just a case of bad timing, and that is a vignette that will lead to something in the coming weeks. Coming out from the back, the Motor City Machine Guns cut a promo on what happened at Final Resolution. They put over their match with WGTT, but of course want to focus on the post-match attack from the Kings of Wrestling. Everybody saw what happened, so they just want to call out Chris Hero and Claudio Castagnoli. They know what they want, but whether this is about the World Tag Team titles or not, the Motor City Machine Guns just want to fight. Instead of the Kings of Wrestling, Jimmy Jacobs comes out to the top of the ramp and he plays down the issues. Jacobs says that he's always liked Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin and admits that they wouldn't look out of place in the new age. Maybe it's something for them to consider. But he's here to try and cool the situation. In 2 weeks' time, Hero and Castagnoli will beat wrestling's greatest tag team, and then at Genesis, it'll be the Kings versus the Machine Guns. There's no issue with that, and at the pay-per-view, we'll see who the better team is. While Motor City Machine Guns don't really have much to say to this, they aren't the only ones with issues with Jimmy Jacobs and the New Age, and wrestling's greatest tag team come out from behind. Jimmy Jacobs doesn't see them come out, but the champions do, and they're enjoying waiting for that moment where Jacobs turns around. Soon, however, the members of the New Age come out to protect their leader, a brawl breaking out. It's initially 3-on-2, which allows the New Age members to take down Haas and Benjamin, but then MCMG run up and join in. Security are quickly out though before we get to the point where it's a 4-on-3 in the favour of the babyfaces, because that wouldn't really make sense. So we lead into some promotion for the main event, and for next week's end-of-year show, Kurt Angle and Bobby Lashley will appear face-to-face ahead of their World Heavyweight Championship match on the January 6th episode of Impact. Mauro and Taz also confirmed that we will hear from Christopher Daniels for the first time since his defeat to Bryan Danielson. He won't be in the building, but there's been a lot of questions over his future, whether he's still with TNA, so he will address that, and the hints are that he may be ready to announce his retirement. That's just from how Mauro and Taz word it. It seems like it's not a case of Christopher Daniels will be back, but more that he wants to talk to the fans to get some closure, etc, etc. Before then, however, we will learn the mystery opponent of Mr. Anderson ahead of tonight's main event, and having made his entrance, Mr. Anderson is kept waiting for a little bit of time before the bell, just building the tension, the surprise, and he's kind of laughing along. He sees through what's happening. This isn't anything that Anderson's not used to. He's rolling his eyes. He's preparing for the surprise opponent. Anderson's initial flippant attitude quickly disappears, however, as the music of his opponent hits. The video appears on the screen. Samoa Joe is back in TNA and puts in those great performances that we're used to from him. It's not a clean finish. We didn't want Mr. Anderson losing straight after losing on the pay-per-view to Kurt Angle because we still are trying to build him into a main event character. But the idea here is that throughout the match he's trying to create separation, rolling to the outside. He feels that it's unfair that he's had to face Samoa Joe at such short notice. Eventually Joe locks in a Coquina clutch, but Anderson boots him in the balls. The referees kind of has no choice but to disqualify him, but Anderson shrugs, forget about it, you don't even have to disqualify me, because he leaves the ring and heads up the ramp. The referee counts to 10, Samoa Joe's down holding his balls, but he does pick up the victory in an exceptional match. I'd say a 70 isn't really an exceptional rating. Maybe it would have been if it got a clean finish. Returning to his feet and now alone in the ring, Samoa Joe continues to sell the low blow from Mr. Anderson before demanding a microphone from ringside. He's readjusting, but he's okay now after being booted in the nuts. Joe says that he's sure he'll see that coward Mr. Anderson down the road again, but that guy isn't why he's back here tonight. Since Turning Point, Joe's been sat at home, he's been biding his time, assessing the landscape and waiting for his moment. Well, that moment is right now, because he's back here for just one thing. Looking directly down the camera, sending a message to the back, Samoa Joe says that he's coming for the new age. TNA will not roll over and step aside for Jimmy Jacobs, Tyler Black and the Kings of Wrestling, and he warns them that they've made a very dangerous enemy in Samoa Joe. Joe then drops the microphone, rolls out the ring. He sent an emphatic message on his return to Impact. A lot of the time it's been the New Age coming after somebody, and therefore because they've been attacked they've retaliated, whereas Samoa Joe is the first guy to just take a microphone and call them out. Could say it's quite a brave or perhaps silly move, having seen what's happened to pretty much everybody else who's crossed him. AJ hasn't come out of it well, Sting hasn't come out of it well, Jeff Hardy won't be here for a very, very long time after being taken out by Tyler Black, but it's a good episode of Impact with an 80 rating, and of course Samoa Joe is a big name to have back on the roster and somebody there who is ready to fight the New Age. We also have confirmation of a couple of big matches, namely the World Heavyweight Championship match that will take place on the New Year's episode of Impact. But there is that thing that I promised, the thing that you will have seen in the thumbnail, and it's this. The fact that Ring of Honor, they are willing to discuss a potential takeover, so the opportunity arising here that TNA can buy out Ring of Honor. It's something that I've been actually able to do since about November, but I wanted to wait until what I felt was a better time for this. I have huge plans for what could potentially come of TNA buying out Ring of Honor, but always I want to hear what other people think of this as well. If you remember, around this time in reality, Sinclair bought out Ring of Honor, so could we be seeing an alternative timeline where Ring of Honor becomes a TNA owned promotion?